And good afternoon, producer Susan. Did you do anything fun over the weekend?
I ventured out to New Jersey for the holiday.
You didn't call me? You didn't come to see me, have a beer with me? I'm pissed. I'm pissed. All right. Well, we'll catch you next time. Has fall come to you yet? I was tempted to turn on the heat this morning. It was 45 outside.
This is gorgeous weather.
It is.
Beautiful.
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 I can't wait for the first frost when all the mosquitoes are dead. Anyway, you want to hear what we're going to try to talk about today?
Yeah, what's on the agenda?
All right, well, today's September the 4th, which is 2 days after Labor Day. I got to update my thing here. And it's the Jerzee Joe Show, news and perspective you won't hear on TV. And today we got a ton of clips. Our quote of the week tells us who the most dangerous types of liars are. There's a lot of different types of liars, but there's one that is more dangerous than the others. In our stupidest thing I've heard all week segment, we have actually two contenders. The first is why the city of San Diego gave a ticket to a disabled vet for putting on free soap bubble show for kids in a public park. And the second is how young people of voting age were unable to answer simple questions every junior high school student should know the answer to. And you get to pick the winner, whether it's the ticket for soap bubbles or these voting age kids who can't answer these simple questions. And a close runner-up will tell you how Vice President Kamala Harris answered a question about climate change during her taped TV interview last week. Oh, and then we have a bonus. And then did you know that she suddenly developed a Southern accent last week?
Really? I missed that.
Well, we're going to play her new Southern accent for you. Now, this is a woman who went to UC Berkeley, grew up in California, and all of a sudden, up until a week ago, didn't have a Southern accent. Now she has one. We'll play that for you. And in a more serious piece, I'm going to take a minute to explain what happens when you allow ideology to triumph over pragmatism. It increases the chances of failure, and it's very, very relevant to our current election situation. We'll also tell you what major U.S. city began a mandatory plastics recycling program 2 years ago. When I say mandatory, fines if you didn't separate your plastic. You had to have a separate container. You had to put your plastic in. If they found plastic in your regular garbage, you got a fine. Well, they've collected 250 tons of plastic, and they've yet to even recycle 1 pound of it 2.5 years later. Government boondoggle. And then, of course, you remember the Canadian wildfires last summer?
Oh, yeah. They made the air quality pretty poor here.
Well, we got some data on exactly how much CO2 those wildfires released into the atmosphere compared to some of the biggest polluting countries in the world. In our Wayback Machine, we got an old clip of actor Morgan Freeman. Don't know if you ever remember Mike Wallace. He used to be on 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
Well, we got a clip of Morgan Freeman explaining to Mike Wallace why he thinks the whole concept of Black History Month is ridiculous. In our science minutes, now, didn't you get a degree in earth science or something like that?
Yes, Earth and Mineral Sciences.
Well, do you know how many meteorites strike the Earth every year?
Actually, it's a lot higher than you'd think.
You're right. The number might astound most people. And our taxpayer relief shot comes to us from Granada Hills, California, where 3 armed thugs invade a home, but only 2 leave alive.
Imagine
All
that.
right. So you want to hear our quote on the most it's from Anonymous. There's no author of this, but I think there's a tremendous amount of truth in it. It's on the most dangerous type of liar. And the quote is, "The most dangerous liars are those that think they are telling the truth."
Yep.
And let me add to that. A liar who thinks they are telling the truth believe the lie so strongly that they will easily pass a polygraph test, and they will act on it as if it was the truth, and they will be very successful in convincing others of that lie because of their sincerity. I mean, that's what I think makes that type of liar the most dangerous. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I spend a little time every day on going on some of these liberal websites, and trust me, this is not a rare situation. I encounter these people literally on a daily basis who are absolutely convinced they have drank the Kool-Aid. They are convinced they are true believers, and they'll tell you how this is great and how the prices are high because the supermarkets are price gouging. And we all know, we've talked about,
Yep.
prices aren't high because the supermarkets are price gouging. And they will repeat lie after lie after lie that they've heard. You familiar with the concept of confirmation bias?
Yeah. that they, I mean, it becomes that they believe that's the truth.
Well, yeah, and if somebody tells you a lie, but it's a lie you want to believe,
Yeah.
your confirmation bias will allow you to accept it as a lie. It will allow you to accept it as a truth and not even think twice about fact checking it. And too many of these people, but it's not just restricted to liberals. There are conservatives, particularly fringe conservatives that suffer from severe confirmation bias as well. They hear something, they hear a lie about a Democrat, or they hear something um, that's positive about Trump, but it's a lie. They willingly believe it and don't even think about fact checking it. That's confirmation bias. And so again, I'm going to repeat the quote. The most dangerous liars are those that think they are telling the truth. And again, have you ever run into somebody like that?
Absolutely, all the time. All the time.
And they are dangerous, and because they believe it, they'll pass, they'll act on it, and they will be very successful in convincing others of the lie because of their sincerity. And it's scary how many people are out there like that. All right, so here are two contenders. You get to pick. The first is the city of San Diego. Now, there's a disabled veteran. He lives in his van, but his specialty, he ever see these guys that have these big hoops, like hula hoops, and they make these gigantic soap bubbles?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In the soap bubble shows, right?
Yeah.
Well, and this guy, he goes to the various parks in San Diego, and he puts on these free bubble shows. And just like these street musicians who work for tips,
Yeah.
he just has a hat, a tip jar, and people, the parents will put money in his tip jar, and he does it to augment his disability check. Well, the city of San Diego shut him down and gave him a ticket for liquid littering. Now, by the way, I checked. If you go on Amazon or whatnot, and you look at, and you ask the question, do soap bubble liquid hurt my grass? And the answer is emphatically no. The soap bubble
that's a toy meant for children that may potentially drink it, so it's non-toxic.
Right. Now let me see if I can let's see if I have a clip here. Maybe I can even play this clip if I have it. I didn't tee this up, but I might have it here. Let's see. Let's see if I have it without the commercial. Oh, hang on. See how long.
And it's also one of the new things too.
It's great. Hang on. We'll skip this in a second.
He's known to many people as the Bubble Man. He drives around in this Bubble World truck and puts on performances around San Diego.
Wow. Huge bubbles. It was so fun chasing them down, trying to pop them.
Sandy Snake
have been blowing bubbles and bringing smiles to people's faces for more than a decade.
Bubbleology is the science, art, and magic of bubbles.
And that magic has a way of bringing people of all ages together.
I mean, it made me feel like a kid, so.
They were humongous. They were big, there were small ones, there was all kinds of different sizes. I've never seen anything like that before.
Sandy's love for bubbles inspired him to create his nonprofit Bubble World. His truck is not only used for work, but also where he lives.
I am registered disabled homeless veteran. I don't take advantage of any of the programs that are offered to me. I'm fully supported by this. It's a 501c3.
He lives off of tips he gets from his bubble shows. He often performs in La Jolla Cove. That's where he was yesterday when rangers gave him a ticket for the bubbles. They cited him for what they called liquid littering.
Basically, he's saying that when my bubbles
liquid littering. Remember this, liquid littering. Here we go.
Pop. The residue of my bubbles fall to the ground and kill the grass. Yeah.
And no, it doesn't kill the grass. He's been doing this for a year and there's no dead grass.
And I explained to him already, that I am full compliance of all ordinances. I am registered with San Diego Parks and Recs. I have insurance.
He showed us the citation. It didn't have a fine, but does have an appearance date in October. I also reached out to San Diego Parks and Rec and I'm waiting to hear back.
I won't play any more of that, but that's one of our contenders for the stupidest thing I've heard all week. I'm sorry?
That is absurd. If any judge prosecutes him, yeah.
Okay. Now let's go to our second contender. Now this is, a guy in the shopping mall asking voting age kids, simple questions.
No.
Hang on.
How many continents can you name?
Hang on. The first question I think is, I'm going to start this over, is what continent is the United States on?
That's all.
Well, oh no, I'm sorry. The first one is what country was formerly known as the USSR? Here we go. Oh, hang on.
Sorry.
I have no idea.
Which of course is Russia, by the way.
Yes.
Country? I don't know, South America.
Yes.
No way.
What language do the people in Idaho speak? Idaho?
So what language do the people of Idaho speak? You want to take a guess at this one? Here we go.
Oh, I heard this in school, bro. Wait. European? Yes. Go. Do you know what continents we're on right now?
No. Next video, another question.
If you had to guess.
I don't know. I'm sleepy right now.
How many continents can you name?
None. Another question.
What country was formerly known as the USSR?
I have no idea.
So between the bubble guy getting a ticket and these voting age people can't.
Yeah, you know, I follow that guy on TikTok. I can't remember his name, but he does this all over the country in populated shopping areas, and he asks all sorts of like ridiculously easy questions that every American should know. And these are just basic like third grade questions.
Right. Justin Awad, by the way, is his name. Justin Awad, right?
Yeah, I follow him, and yeah, he goes all over the place asking, you know,
So
and
which-
it just goes to prove how incredibly uneducated our Americans are who are voting in these elections.
And that's what's scary. These people,
It is.
they vote. These people are going to decide who the next president of this country is. So if you had to pick between the people who can't answer simple questions and the bubble guy getting a ticket for,
I'm gonna go with the bubble guy. I mean, this guy, the guy who asked the questions, I mean, it's part of his like online TikTok personality. He does it all, you know, he's got hundreds of channels or hundreds of clips of him doing this.
Yep.
And it's a real damn shame and it's ridiculous. But the guy with the bubbles in San Diego, if anybody actually prosecutes him, what I foresee happening is that the community is going to rally together and create him some sort of GoFundMe account.
I hope so. But the shame is, you know, they won't let him go until this thing is adjudicated. He can't put on his shows in the park anymore. Anyway.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with him. I'm going to go with the veteran who lives in San Diego.
Right. Lives in San Diego in his van, by the way. All right.
And I'm curious to hear the follow-up to that story after see what happens to him.
All right. As soon as we have one, we'll give it to you. So by the way, in our runner-up to the stupidest thing I've heard all week, was the word salad answer that Vice President Kamala Harris gave to an interview question about her plans to deal with the issue of climate change. Now, you know what a word salad is, right? It's a bunch of words that don't say anything. So when she was asked this question by the interviewer, what are your plans to deal with climate change? And here is her answer verbatim. Climate is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics to include holding ourselves to deadlines around time.
Mm-hmm.
You need me to repeat that for you?
Yeah, I do actually.
Listen carefully. Climate is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics to include holding ourselves to deadlines around time.
Yeah, that's word vomit.
I don't even think that's a grammatically correct statement, by the way.
I don't think so at all.
Oh, and then, by the way, she had, and I mentioned earlier that she has developed, she's come down with a case of a Southern accent. Here's Kamala Harris, California educated, her brand new Southern accent. Here we go.
So I tell people, you may not be a union member, but you better thank unions for that 5-day work week. Everywhere I go, I tell people, look, you may not be a union member. You better thank a union member.
You better thank a union member.
For sick leave, you thank unions for paid family leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. Thank unions for your vacation time. You better thank a union member for vacation time. So we're 64 days out from this election. Let's just get through the next 64 days.
You like that? The drawl, you know, the Southern drawl, how you stretch out the end of every word. So what do you think of her? Did you know she was from the South?
I did not. She's from California, I believe, right?
Yeah, UC Berkeley. You grew up in San Francisco, and apparently, if she had that Southern accent, she hit it well because it only came over her last week when she was speaking to these auto workers. But
I mean, yeah, you better. And then the way, yeah, and then she stretches out with that drawl at the very end of every, and that was, by the way, 3 different speeches she gave. Those clips came from 3 different, so it's not like she did it once by accident. She practiced that and she perfected it. She'd probably make a great actress because she's ability to adopt a dialect like that, and that truly is an adoption. So
Yeah, I thought she was from California.
she is from
And
California.
she's not even from Southern California. She's from like the San Francisco area.
Exactly. So that was, I put her in as a runner-up. Otherwise, I would have said that was kind of the stupidest thing. But I think her word salad is truly a runner-up. All right. You want to get serious for a minute?
Yes.
All right. You know what pragmatism is, right?
Yes.
It's okay. It's being a realist. Okay. So I did this little, somebody asked me this question and I wrote a little dissertation and I called it when allowing ideology to triumph over pragmatism opens the door to failure. So if you'll indulge me for the next 90 seconds. So here we go. Back in January of this year, before any of the Republican or Democrat primaries had been held, most political experts were predicting that President Biden would drop out of the presidential race. And based on those predictions, numerous national polls were taken showing how the 3 leading Republican candidates, which were Trump, Haley, and DeSantis, would fare against various alternative Democrat challengers other than Biden. And those Democrat challengers were Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, Governor Gavin Newsom of California, and VP Kamala Harris. Now, those polls overwhelmingly showed Trump either losing to or possibly barely squeaking out and beating some, but not all of the 3 alternate opponents. While those same polls had Nikki Haley crushing all 3 by a wide margin, and Ron DeSantis doing almost as well as Nikki Haley. Now, a pragmatist who believed the most important objective this election year would be to ensure that the 47th president of the United States would not be another Democrat, would have voted for either Haley or DeSantis, despite having a strong ideological preference for Trump, right? That's what a pragmatist would do.
Yeah.
They'd say, hey, I would really prefer to see Trump, but being a realist, and if Biden drops out, it would probably not be Trump in the White House. Therefore, I'd rather have my second choice in the White House than my first choice watching the inauguration on TV. That's what a pragmatist would have done. But unfortunately for conservatives, the majority of Republicans who voted in the primaries decided to put their ideology ahead of pragmatism, and in so doing have opened the door to failure this November by voting for Trump as the Republican nominee. So if Kamala Harris is elected the 47th president of the United States and you voted for Trump in the primaries, when you look in the mirror, remember that you helped make that possible. Now, do you think I'm being too harsh?
No.
Do you think do you think have stated where we are accurately?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So again, if Kamala Harris wins the election, it is, I believe, primarily the fault of the ideologues in the Republican Party who put ideology ahead of pragmatism, and that is why we have, of all the possible candidates we could have nominated, Trump as an electable candidate. I'm not saying Trump is the weakest, would have been the worst president, but in terms of electability, he was the least electable of all the candidates we had to pick from, and Republican majority chose our least electable candidate. And I'm not saying I dislike Trump. I'm going to vote for Trump. I think Trump would do a great job, but as a pragmatist, I'd rather have my second choice in the White House than my first choice watching the inauguration on TV. And unfortunately, I think that's where we are. Do you disagree?
No, I would have, and I said this before, I would have loved to have seen, and I think many of us had thought, kind of anticipated that Biden was going to eventually drop out. I think you had actually called that he was going to drop out a long, long time ago.
Yeah, I did.
I would have loved to have seen Nikki Haley and Kamala Harris go head to head.
Yeah, and it would have been a runaway for Haley, by the way.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen. Can you imagine two female candidates? I would have loved, and 2 female candidates are both have a diverse ethnic background.
Right.
Both of them. I would have loved to have seen that. I think, yeah, I would have loved to have seen the two of them.
Yeah, they both have East Asian, Asian Indian heritage.
Well,
by the way.
Nikki Haley is as an Indian descent, and Harris is, what, half African American and half Asian American.
Right. So yeah, so it would have been great. Two women of color. Anyway, we can only talk about what would have been. Unfortunately, we have to deal with what is, and what is a scary race to the election, which I think is only what, 67 days away, something like that.
Yep.
All right. So let's talk about plastic. Do you have to recycle plastics where you are?
We do.
Is it mandatory? Is it mandatory?
It is mandatory. But honestly, like if I accidentally throw something in my trash, like they're not going through my trash. But if it's something that's like obviously, if I have a big party and
Okay. All right. Well, the city of Houston back in 2022 put in place a mandatory plastic recycling program. And since then, they've collected 250 tons, which is 500,000 pounds of plastic since then. But their recycling center, and by the way, most plastic recycling, there's like 6 different classifications of plastic. There's this little triangle that has the 1, the 2, right?
Yeah.
And some plastic is recyclable and some isn't. You know that, right?
Yep.
You got the clear water bottles, you got the cloudy milk bottles, you've got the shiny shopping bags they give you at the Gap. They get the hard plastic. They give you styrofoam, styrene, saran wrap, the stuff they would put around the hamburger meat, all these different types of plastics. Not all of it's recycled. Well, City of Houston says, hey, we're going to build this plastic recycling facility that can recycle mixed plastic. Well, so people were throwing all of their plastic into this one recycling container. The city collected it. It's been sitting out in an open yard in the rain now for 2.5 years. 500,000 pounds of it. It's stacked, it's mountains of it. It's baled and it's stacked high. The facility has yet to open and nobody knows if it's going to work, but that's what's happening. That's another, you would think they would have the facility up and running before they said, let's enact this, or you would think that the facility would be within 90 days of being ready, but no, they hadn't even broken ground for this facility before they enacted this law. So that's another example of government efficiency. They've been collecting and storing this, 250 tons of plastic for 2.5 years, and not 1 pound's been recycled yet. All right, you want to move on to
so it's interesting that we have mandatory recycling here, but it's not every plastic is recycled. Like yogurt containers are the one thing I can't throw away. I have to throw those in the trash.
Yeah. By the way, how much time we got?
Let's see. We've got about 10 minutes.
All right, real quick. Here's a different type. This is just different types of plastics. Not all. You've got plastic wrap like saran wrap, clear plastic water bottles, cloudy milk bottles, juice pouches, the caps on water bottles, those hard white plastic caps, green soda bottles like Mountain Dew, disposable single-use plastic bags you get in the grocery store, the shiny plastic shopping bags you get at the Gap, plastic shampoo bottles, rigid plastic prescription bottles, styrofoam, styrene, and plexiglass, plastic utensils and straws, right? The white plastic forks, blue tarps, molded plastic enclosures and fixtures that are used on computers, printers, TVs, and remote. Does your printer have a plastic enclosure?
It does.
Touchscreens, car bumpers and body panels, rubber car mats, plastic pipe and tubing, which comes in clear, black, white, rigid, and flexible. Homes, siding on most homes these days is plastic.
Yep.
A lot of rugs are made from plastic, clothing, rayon and nylon, furniture, seats and coverings, luggage. Most suitcases are plastic, shoes and sneakers, pens, and the list goes on and on and on, but only about 1/3 of those plastics are recyclable. Now the city of Houston says it's all recyclable. That waits to be seen. All right. You want to talk about CO2 and science?
Yeah.
Next to China, what do you think is the second biggest emitter of CO2 in the world? Which country is next to China?
In India.
With a population of 1.4 billion people.
Yep.
That is building, multiple new coal-fired power plants literally every week. I think they opened 20 or 30 new coal-fired power plants last week. Well, according to the calculations, last year, the Canadian wildfires emitted so much carbon into the atmosphere that it put the country on par with the annual fossil fuel emissions of India, which is every every smokestack, every power
Mm.
plant, every vehicle
Mhm.
in India. That's what so in just 5 months, Canada emitted enough carbon from wildfires, 647 million metric tons. And by the way, metric ton is 2,200 as opposed to 2,000 pounds.
Mhm.
To be comparable with the annual fossil fuel emission of the top 10 largest emitters in the world and 4 times larger than Canada's total fossil fuel emissions, including vehicle emissions. So how's that for nature saying,
Yeah. I was in probably one of, and it's the way the jet stream flows. I was in last summer during the wildfires. I was in Reading, Pennsylvania, which is southeastern-ish part of the state. And it had the highest readings in this region, in the New York, New
Right.
Jersey, Pennsylvania reading. And I mean, the air was actually yellow. I mean, you
Yeah.
could literally see the smoke in the,
Right.
it was so bad that they actually canceled baseball games and a
Yeah.
lot of outdoor sporting events.
You know, that kind of reminds me, there's an old Jewish proverb that says, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Well, I think
Yep.
if you want to make Mother Nature laugh, tell her how you're going to limit your CO2 emissions or how you're
Yeah.
going to control your.
Yep.
And then we have volcanoes cropping up and, but anyway, so that's the Canadian wildfires. They emitted more CO2 in the atmosphere than the country of India. So anyway, in our science, so again, we talked about earth science. You're an earth science graduate, and you said,
Yep.
it's a huge number. Well, you want to take a guess what the actual number is per year?
Oh, it's pretty significant. I think it's going to astonish a lot of people, but it's very significant.
17,000 meteorites
Yeah.
strike the surface of the Earth, which is roughly 47 a day. Now,
Yep.
most of them are smaller than the size of a pea by the time they actually reach the surface. But why don't we see them? Well, a couple of reasons. One, because most fall during the daylight hours when you can't see the fire streak they leave. So that's number one. And then two, at night, most people are asleep at night. But even those at night, the majority, when you look at the Earth, 3/4 of the Earth are covered by water. So,
Yeah.
they're falling over the ocean, they're falling over forests in Canada and the Arctic and the Antarctic. So that's why it is rare to see any of those 47 meteorites per day, because again, the majority fall in the daytime. Another huge portion fall at night when everybody's asleep.
Mhm.
And of the ones that fall at night, a huge portion, fall where nobody can see them. All right.
Mhm.
I know we're getting short on time. Let's go to Morgan Freeman telling Mike Wallace of 60 Minutes why he thinks the concept of a Black History Month is ridiculous. And here we go.
And for those who don't know, Morgan Freeman is a Black man.
Black actor, famous Black actor. Here we go.
Black History Month you find ridiculous. Why? You're going to relegate my history to a month? Oh, come on. What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it.
I love that line. How are we going to get rid of racism? And Morgan Freeman, did you hear what he said?
Yeah.
Stop talking about it.
Mhm.
I'm only going to play another few seconds of this.
I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yep.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a Black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman. You're going to say, well, this white guy named Mike Wallace. You know what I'm saying?
So I just think that's great, tremendous, great perspective. I have tremendous respect for Morgan Freeman.
Mhm.
So what do you think of Morgan Freeman's perspective on race relations in this country and Black
I
history?
agree. I
Yep.
absolutely agree. But for us being two very Caucasian people saying that, we'd be called racist for thinking that, but coming from a Black man,
Yeah,
kudos to him.
yeah. If you and I said, I think Black History Month is ridiculous, we'd be labeled as racist.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. In a heartbeat.
all right. All right, we got time for taxpayer relief shot?
Yeah. Yes, we do.
All right, we got time to tell people why we call them a taxpayer relief shot?
I think so.
All right, here's the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, telling us why we call them a taxpayer relief shot. Here we go.
somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully you'll save the taxpayers money.
All right, and this one comes to us from California, where a homeowner finds out that 3 masked thugs have broken into his house. And here we go.
In Granada Hills, that's where there's been another home invasion, but this time the victim fought back. Police say 4 suspects, they entered the home early this morning, but only 3 left after the homeowner shot.
Now, by the way, she says 4 entered, 3 left. The reporter on the scene says 3 enters, 2 left. So there's a little disconnect here, but regardless, the story, it's still a good story. Here we go.
Shot and killed one of the would-be robbers.
Now let's go to Chris Wolf. He's live in Northridge tonight where that investigation is underway. Chris?
Yeah, Rick, Kareen, the LAPD's Devonshire station is handling this case. One thing is very clear. People are fed up. Many believe the criminal justice system in Southern California is failing them. They are defending themselves and turning the tables on criminals. With a seemingly endless violent crime wave plaguing Southern California, homeowners, would-be victims, are increasingly fighting back. Investigators say around 5 a.m. Saturday morning, 3 men wearing dark clothing, hoodies, and masks broke into a home on Swinton Avenue in Granada Hills with the intention of committing a robbery. The homeowner, a grandmother, and toddler were inside. Fearing for his life, the victim grabbed a handgun and fired multiple times on the intruders, fatally striking one of them. The 2 others scattered, and police believe at least one of them.
They scattered, shocked, I say. I'm shocked. The other 2 left and left their bleeding buddy on the floor. Has that ever happened?
Happens.
Never happened before.
Was injured because authorities discovered a trail of blood in the neighborhood. The getaway car, a black BMW sedan, was left at the scene. Video from the scene shows at least 2 men being handcuffed, but details are unclear. Police say they detained the resident involved in the shooting for questioning before paramedics examined him.
Our investigation will continue at this point, but anyone that's inside of their residence that is faced with a deadly threat and is perceived as a deadly threat has the right to protect themselves.
Some neighbors who spoke to us do not want to be identified.
The suspects messed with the wrong homeowner, So hopefully this will stop them or something. It makes me feel good that people actually protect their home and, they're able to protect their home and stop these guys.
We've been having burglaries every day in this neighborhood. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all this has happened. It's been a real problem here, and the residents here are fed up.
Just days earlier, a young husband and father in Granada Hills returned home from Christmas shopping to find several gunmen leaving his house with stolen items. He tried to chase them down. You try to ram that vehicle?
Yes, I did, like 2-3 times.
And about 2 weeks before that, also in Granada Hills, George Lozano Jr. grabbed his gun and chased off several hooded figures who were closing in on his property, all captured on security footage. It's unclear if all of these crimes were committed by the same people. Anyone with information should contact the LAPD.
And once again, so, homeowner wins and the thugs lose. All right. All right. Well, I think we're running short on time. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, the debate is next week. It's the 10th, I believe, which I think is Tuesday.
Yep.
So curious to see how that all unfolds.
You and me both. I hope it's a win for Republicans, because I really don't want to see Kamala Harris. I don't think it's any secret. I'm not a big fan of Kamala Harris. I really don't want her to be our next president. So I hope Trump does well. Anyway, I want to thank everybody who listened to me, the podcast, for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day. If you have a vote on who you think should be our stupidest thing I've heard all week contest, either the bubble man or the people who can't answer simple questions, just send me an email to joe@jerzeejoe.com. That's JERZEE, jerzeejoe.com, which is also the website. Just jerzeejoe.com is the website. And if you want to see any of the materials or story links you heard me talk about today, give producer Susan a couple of days and she'll have them up on the website, which again is jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with JERZEE. And again, if you want to email with a comment, question, or suggested show topic, you do that by sending me the email to joe@jerzeyjoe.com. And with that, producer Susan, unless you have anything to add, we'll sign off and talk to you next week. Anything you want to add?
Sounds good. Enjoy this beautiful weather.
You too. I'll talk to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.